in the meantime, I spoke with Washington Post's Mariana Alfaro about the politics of the UAW strike. We talked about whether or not President Biden would go down there, to Michigan, to Ohio, to Missouri, to join some of these striking workers after reports that former President Donald Trump intends to do just that. Here's our conversation. Do you think there will be kind of any consequences from, I guess, going against what Shawn Fain has said there? If Trump just kind of shows up and meets with some of these workers, do you think that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be quite the headline if he does. He's clearly been doing all of these different things. Instead of going to the Republican debates, this is the second time he would miss it. But again, I think it's been a while since a former president has joined a picket line. And clearly what Trump is doing here is trying to make a move for what has been a key constituency for Democrats. We always know union workers tend to vote Democrat. And so if he shows up there, maybe he could change some minds there. Maybe he could really, weaken the Democratic hold on this. But again, it really depends on how much they would embrace him, given that he's been very, criticized by the UAW president and also critical of him too.
Yeah, because, it's not like, Wayne County, Macomb County in Michigan. These aren't like anti-Trump strongholds. These are, elements of his constituency as well. So maybe this is somewhat favorable terrain for him.
Yeah, it's definitely been over the last, I guess, 2 elections, we've seen more of these workers kind of turn out for Trump and kind of, been the message that he has been resonating with them, that, they've been forgotten by the Democratic Party, or that they, are not, a lot of the policies that are being pushed by Democrats are not benefiting them. I think that one of the ones, and this is not the main issue that workers are striking against, but one of the ones that Republican candidates have been floating around a lot is that, Joe Biden pushed for a lot of electric vehicles, for example, to be in production, and that this could affect, their job security or how much they're being paid. And so I think that that's something that we've seen Trump rally against, that we've seen other of the Republican candidates echo it. And so I think that he can go grab that message and run with it and show up at the picket line with it.
Yeah, this would, I think it would be a political stop. It would be kind of a campaign event almost if he were to kind of join them alongside on the picket line. That's kind of how I am interpreting this, maybe.
Yeah, and we already know that Trump has the ability to turn any of these events into a campaign stop. The day that he turned in himself in Georgia for the indictment also kind of became political. He kind of, made it part of his stunts and part of his way to call attention away from the other candidates. So I wouldn't be surprised if not only is it historic if he shows up, but also something that he can use further down the line to continue, holding the support he has already in this primary.
Yeah, of course. We know Trump didn't attend the first debate there in Milwaukee. He's saying, or at least there are reports saying that, he's going to join the picket line next Wednesday. That's the date of the second RNC primary debate there in California, kind of as a counter-programming event. But, he has said as much, that he's not going to be on these debate stages throughout the primary season. Do you think Republican primary voters care about that?
I don't think they care. Clearly it's not showing in the polls. I think that he's only been, getting more popular and getting more support since the last debate. I think that the number is barely budged in terms of how much of a lead he has. I think he's still leading Ron DeSantis by 50 points in most polls. What changes is, what support the other candidates are getting. I know that Nikki Haley got a boost last time. We got to see what Vivek Ramaswamy has to say. And, Ron DeSantis keeps losing, the hold he has in the second place, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Trump is still the clear front runner here, and whether he's on the debate or not, it doesn't really affect that number that much.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because he is still kind of holding these campaign events, even though he's under 4 indictments in 4 separate jurisdictions. And so the legal problems have really added up there. And he was in an interview with Megyn Kelly. She asked him, do you worry about going to jail? And he kind of dismissed the question, saying, not really. So I thought that was really interesting. What do you make of his campaign in light of all of that?
Well, the fact is that he could still, if he wins the president, he still can serve despite all these investigations, and that is just a funny thing about the way the U.S. works. But I think that the poll numbers have shown that a lot of these things are not weakening him. I mean, maybe they are affecting him with moderate voters who are probably, already going to say they were not going to vote for him. But when it comes to his real support and his real base, none of them are turning away despite these indictments. And I think that, he has not been yet punished in support for it. I think he has not really felt any consequences yet. And maybe he will, the more we discover from what comes out of these investigations. But so far, it just hasn't really had an impact that I would say he's not the front runner anymore.
Yeah, I mean, back to just briefly the politics of the UAW strike, because it seems like Trump wants to capitalize on that and use it kind of as a kind of programming event for the next debate. But what about Democrats? What about the Biden White House as well? Are they seeing this as somewhat of a political opportunity or just yet another crisis that they need to get under control? I mean, because we're still a week out from the debate. I mean, if Trump plans to go, visit these striking workers, I mean, potentially the strike could be over by then. I mean, we don't know, but.
So I do know from reporting from my colleagues that Democrats in Michigan are really urging Biden to show up and support, those strikers. I know that it's something none of his predecessors appear to have done before, join workers on the picket line. But it would play quite well, especially in the state, and especially because in order to kind of shake off the Republican claims that a lot of this is caused by his own policies, which clearly, as I've mentioned before, it's not the number one thing that the workers are striking against, these electric vehicles. But I do think that, if Biden wants to strengthen his hold on these voters, on union workers, it would be beneficial for him to show up. And that's what Michigan Democrats are telling him.
All right. As always, Mariana Alfaro, we do appreciate your reporting on all of these political headlines of the day. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.